understanding your numbers extremely well helps you drive performance of the business, right? If you know your numbers and your percentages like the back of your hand, think about how powerful you can be as a business owner, right? If you know going in what your average material cost and what your average labor cost is for a job and what your overhead is as a company, it makes it a lot easier to estimate jobs. My name is William Fletcher, and welcome to the Leveled Up Contractor Show, the #1 show for contractors that want to level up their business with the best systems, numbers, and tools for contractors. For more, be sure to visit us over at leveledupcontractor.com for all of our templates, training, and a whole lot more. So let's get into today's show. In this episode, we're going to be covering how to use numbers and metrics to drive performance in your business. Now, if you've been around this show, or if you've been around me for any length of time, you know that I love to talk about numbers, and today is no different. And metrics and numbers should be a big part of your business. Now, we talk about it all the time, whether it's using a dashboard to manage your business or meeting with your team about numbers. Numbers are a focal point for us, and the reason being, guys, is numbers allow you to do so many different things when it comes to running your business. And today we're going to deep dive in how you actually use those and make them part of the culture of your business. So let's kind of dive right into that. Now, the first part of this, guys, is you got to put a focus on making numbers and metrics a part of the culture of your business, right? So one of the things that we've invested pretty heavily in is making sure that, one, we have TVs. Every room of the building pretty much has TVs, right? We want our employees to constantly see numbers, to see metrics and things that we're tracking that are helping us get to our big goals, right? So not only did we put a focus on the technology piece from the physical stuff like TVs and whiteboards and HDMI cables and computers and all this stuff, but also the systems in which we run. So, having a CRM, having tracking ability for your call center, having access to something like Google Sheets and things that allow you to put all these cool metrics online in places that you can display on TVs. And guys, so many companies have made these things accessible that used to be so hard to get. I remember the days of downloading, text files and CSVs from mainframes and then uploading those into an Access database to, dump those into Excel and all this kind of stuff to get good reporting. And these days, it's just not like that, right? Everything's accessible from the cloud. If you're doing things right, you got a CRM that's on the cloud, so all your data lives anywhere that you have an internet connection. Having something like Google Drive that allows you to view spreadsheets that are connected to your CRM, all in the cloud. So things are so accessible nowadays. So if you're not doing it, that's the first step, right? Is making it a part of your culture, getting numbers out in front of people. And even if you haven't even advanced past that yet, just starting putting those metrics up and getting people to see them, they'll start asking questions about them, right? So even if you don't have the money to already invest in all that kind of stuff like TVs and stuff, start putting numbers and metrics on the whiteboard, making them visible for people within your company to see. Now, the next one starts bringing in that people component, which is promoting and awarding people based off of their performance on the numbers and metrics that you set, right? So this is incentivizing employees, whether that's with bonuses or, running challenges or things throughout the weeks and the months in the business, and basing people's compensation and bonuses and contests and all this kind of stuff off of different numbers and metrics, right? So if you know that, certain things have to happen in your business in order for it to be successful and to hit your goals, well, then you can drive performance by incentivizing your employees for those specific things. For example, let's say that, you put together a budget at the beginning of the year. You knew how many sales you had to do. You worked it all the way backwards, and you knew that every single week you had to get X number of leads. And, you're looking at your dashboard and you realize that, you've been behind on leads for the last couple weeks. And you know that in order to stay on track for your goals, you can't continue to be behind on leads, right? So you start incentivizing things, uh, like having your sales guys for anything that they self-generate in leads, a metric that they're going to increase because they self-generate some sales, whether that's through referrals or knocking doors or making phone calls, whatever they can do. You can incentivize them to start bringing in leads, which helps you hit your goals. And people are focusing on metrics. Now, another cool way to do this, which we love to do, is incentivizing employees off of certain margins and expectations like that, right? If we know that we want to be at a 50% margin on our jobs, we can incentivize our production department to hit that 50% gross margin, right? Whether that's through doing good ordering or, hiring subs right, or sending out material quotes to multiple vendors, or sending out labor quotes to multiple subcontractors. They're going to start treating the business as a business owner, and they're going to start driving that performance on that metric of gross margin, right? So by building these things into the culture, incentivizing people on it, you can start to get them thinking about the metrics and the things that you're trying to achieve. And then you take it a step further, right? Is you build these kind of things into their job descriptions and expectations, right? We call these the measurables. It's something that we talk about extensively in our training, but essentially everyone in your company should have some type of metric or number or measurable that they're responsible for, right? So we talked about maybe a production manager is responsible for, coming in at a 50% gross margin and producing, X amount of revenue per year. A sales manager would be in charge of booking a certain amount of sales and booking those at a certain margin. A project manager might be responsible for gross margin and completing a certain amount of jobs, and even be responsible for a certain amount of revenue themselves, right? So there's so many different ways that you can do this, guys, but the key is that each one of your employees, when you build their job descriptions and you set the expectations for them, you are building those measurables, those metrics, those numbers right into that stuff. So the expectation is clear from the beginning that, hey, you're responsible for these numbers. These are a part of your job. These are a part of what you do. And then you go back to what I said a minute ago and you start incentivizing them based on high performance around those metrics. So you talk about building it into the culture. When employees start to see that, hey, it's my expectation to hit these targets, and not only is it my expectation, but when I exceed them and I hit these certain points, I actually get bonused and incentivized on them. They start treating it like business owners. And that's where things get powerful, guys. Now, the next one is kind of where you take that from there. So, just giving you the example, you gave a sales representative, their measurables, their targets, what they had to hit. And a sales is easy because, you can always track sales and things like that with numbers. But just continuing on with this example, they have those metrics inside of their job descriptions, what their expectations are, and then you're meeting with them, right? And you do this a couple of different ways, right? You have departmental meetings, and you make a part of your departmental meetings, you're going over those metrics, right? You're talking about how they're doing as a team, whether you're looking at sales dollars or what their estimate ratio is or how they're closing. You're looking at all those different metrics that are key for that department. Same for production. When you're doing those weekly production huddles or those daily production huddles, you're looking at the number of jobs they completed and at what margin they completed them at. You're looking at all those kind of key deliverables and measurables that they're responsible for. And then when you're having those employee one-on-one conversations, whether that's a quarterly review or just your weekly or bi-weekly check-in with your employees, you're looking at their measurables and you're looking at how their performance is based off of them, and you're helping them set action items that they're going to do to get things back on track. So if you got a production manager that's really struggling to get jobs to come in at margin, you're helping remove those barriers and things that are causing them grief, and you're giving them the tools to be successful. Now, obviously, everyone's not going to be successful. You may find as you start tracking these measurables, some people just aren't in the right seat, and that's okay. But by tracking these numbers and metrics, you start to identify those things that you didn't see before, and it gives you the opportunity to help people that need help, and to move people that need to be moved, and to make, B and C players, bring them up to A players, right? So there's so much that you can do. And from here, guys, it's all about building that steady cadence to review numbers with the organization. So when you think about it, guys, you've made it so much a part of your culture, because now you got it everywhere in the building, whether that's TV screens and whiteboards. You're rewarding employees off of the metrics. You're incentivizing them to do certain things. You're driving performance with different incentives and contests, all based around these numbers. And then you build it into the job descriptions and the expectations of those employees. And then you're bringing it down to the discussions and the meetings and the one-on-ones. And then at the big picture level, you're sharing the numbers a lot with the organization outside of the departmental meetings. Maybe you're sharing monthly results as a company. Maybe you're sharing quarterly results as a company, and you're constantly putting that focus of the performance of the business based on the numbers and metrics that you're achieving. All right, so that's kind of the people component and building it into your culture. And the next thing I want to talk about is, understanding your numbers extremely well helps you drive performance of the business, right? If you know your numbers and your percentages like the back of your hand, think about how powerful you can be as a business owner, right? If you know going in what your average material cost and what your average labor cost is for a job and what your overhead is as a company, it makes it a lot easier to estimate jobs, to predict things, to create a budget, to set targets for things like profit. Like, if you know what your average job costs are, so your material costs, your subcontractor costs, and whatever other job costs that you have, or your labor costs, and your overhead percentages, what it costs you to run the business, and how many salespeople you have and how many leads it's going to take to hit your goals, you can reverse engineer things like profit, guys. Now, I'm not telling you that, everything's going to come out exactly as you predicted it, but you can come pretty darn close when you start getting really good at this stuff with the numbers and percentages. You can start to predict at the beginning of the year what the year is going to look like and what it's going to take to get there. And then you can manage it on a weekly basis to help you make sure those things actually happen. So, you can do so much with this as far as driving the performance of the business when you know your numbers really well. And I talked about a budget in there, guys. If you don't have a business budget, you need to make one. This is one of the key things every business owner should do, because the way I like to describe this, guys, is imagine you were trying to get somewhere that you don't know, how to get to, and you didn't have a map, right? You were just kind of winging it. You were turning here, you were turning there, you were speeding up here, slowing down there, and at the end of the day, you could be going the total wrong direction, right? You could think you're on target, but you're going the total wrong direction. And that's kind of what running a business without a budget looks like, right? With the budget, we can say, here's where we're at now, here's where we want to go, and here's all the things that have to happen in order for us to get there. So imagine you said, okay, here's the profit number that I want to hit to help us hit our goals and the things we're trying to achieve. And then you start looking at it and say, okay, well, I know what my costs are. I know what my what my gross profit has to be, what my overhead percentage is. So I got to sell this much in order to hit that profit. And then with your budget, you get down to a detailed level where you got a full year budget. You know exactly what you're going to spend for the year on the different categories, how many people you got to hire, what you're going to pay them. And you break it down to a detailed level. I even take mine all the way down to a month level. I look at our seasonality. I know, in the colder months in January and February, those are going to be slower months for us. And I know that, through late summer and fall, those are going to be our biggest months. So I have it seasonalized, and I know pretty much by month what we expect to sell, what we expect our cost to be, and what we expect our profit to be. And we set our goals around this. If you really look at this from a high level, you reverse engineer your 10-year, your 5-year, your 3-year goals all the way down to that 1-year goal. So you're really building out that map to hit your big goals as you proceed through things. So this is a huge one, guys. If you don't have a business budget, you have to do it. And something that we've kind of talked about all through this, but I just want to emphasize it a little bit more, is, guys, knowing your numbers, like the back of your hand, allows you to actually build it backwards. So one of the things I talked about is, if you know what your profit, what you want your profit to be, then you can figure out how much you got to sell in order to do it, based off of, what your expenses averages are. And when you start to know these things, guys, if you know what your percentage is on your sub costs and your labor costs and your material costs and your overhead expenses, then you can get really strategic with things and build it backwards, because then you can figure out how many sales you need. And if you know how many sales you need, well, then you can build it back to how many sales reps you need, how many leads that you got to get, how many estimates you got to write, based off your close percentage and all this kind of stuff, guys. So I can't stress it enough. Numbers are so important to your business. If I would leave you with anything, it would be, make that change today. Start putting that information out there. Start letting your staff see the numbers and build it in your culture. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. For more information just like this, visit us over at leveledupcontractor.com, and we will see you in the next episode of the Leveled Up Contractor Show.